Okay, so since we got to the end of the story, I don't think there is much else I can stream from Tower of Fantasy. So we may go back to Final Fantasy next. Or we will play something else. Though my usual stream time only has about an hour to go, so I figure we should just chat into some light media share again. So as I mentioned during the game, real world gacha mechanics. Alright.
I built a new math.
I'm sure this guy has one on the other machine type. This guy seems to make videos like Mr. Beast does. Except he makes things to show up.
Feet. 11 feet. It's no secret that carnivals exist to make money, and to do that most effectively, they employ a bunch of little tricks to make you overestimate your chances of winning, in some cases to such an extent that it's basically a scam. So I spent a couple days coming down to this amusement park and observing and collecting data on all of the carnival games. So today I'm going to tell you which games are the biggest ripoffs and the scientific reasons why.
I can tell you one thing in advance, having not watched this video. You can pretty much just ask the operator of the game to give you the prize if you pay them for it. Defeats the fun aspect, but sometimes you just want to get the toy for someone who is upset and that better than. The gambling aspect 'Cause I assure you, the operators of the games don't want to look like a bad guy either.
Even Nancy drew how much the carnival actually pays for the prizes that people can win. But there is hope, because I'll also show you some legitimate tricks on how to win the most popular games, along with what happens when you show up to the carnival with your professional baseball playing buddy who happens to play for the New York Mets. Let's get started. Any kind of legitimate investigation needs to start with solid data as the foundation.
That almost certainly DMC a music.
I had some friends secretly help me collect data on all 24 carnival games for a full day. Not only did we capture how many times each game was played, but we also recorded how many times people actually won each game and the prize they won. And so the first observation, based on the data we collected, is that this relatively small part
This video has 95 million views.
off their carnival games alone. So to help frame the rest of the observations, we'll divide the games into three groups. The first group, you've got the random chance games. Games like these, where no skill is involved and you're basically just rolling dice. And for the second group, you have your skill-based games like the basketball shot, or the milk bottle throw, or the basket toss game, where if you bring some kind of skill or strategy to the table, you can increase your chances.
So he made $1 million off just the ad revenue, most likely.
These ones are borderline scams. There are three games in this category that lots of people attempted and nobody won. And if they did win, like in the case of the ladder climb, it was for a very specific reason, which I will address later. So let's start by talking about the random chance games. Calculating your chance of winning here is pretty straightforward. You just divide the winning outcomes by the total outcomes and you get a percentage. So in this case, there are about 1,600 total cups and 160 winning cups. So that's a 10% chance, or 1 in 10 throws will win. There are a ton of games similar to this, but the catch is they always use balls that are lightweight and have a high coefficient of restitution, meaning they bounce really well off things. This
Now I can't remember the last time I went to a carnival. Out here in Vancouver, we have Playland, which is also the peony during some month. I have never been there when it's in PNE mode. Back in school, they used to give everyone like some free pass to the PNE during that month. A lot good that did us who didn't live in Vancouver. I hold no grudges over that. But that just shows you how out of touch the provincial government is outside of the lower mainland.
makes it much less likely the ball will end up where you originally aimed it. To illustrate this point, think how much easier this game would be with beanbags, which are heavier and don't bounce. With a ping pong ball, however, any imperfection in the aim of your original throw is magnified, which essentially randomizes things. If you have no skills, these are the games that you want to play. But don't get too excited, because even when you win, you lose. After some investigative work, I uncovered the source where they ordered their prizes from, and so even if you got lucky and won on your first throw, it would cost you $1.50 for a prize that cost them 45 cents. But you usually don't get it on your first try, so treating this as an expected value problem in statistics, it would take you an average of 5 times to land it in a yellow cup, which means you pay $7.50 for something that cost them 45 cents. In the case of the big prize, by landing it in the super rare gold cup, it's even worse. It would take you an average of 25 tries, which works out to $38 for something that cost them $6. And I'll add, the number of people we observed winning matched up pretty well with these statistical predictions. Now let's talk about the second group, which are the skill-based games. And one of the most popular in this category is the basketball toss, with 825 plays the day that we observed. Now a standard three-pointer is 24 feet back on a rim that is 10 feet off the ground. But in this case, the line is 28 feet back on a rim that is 11.
So it's not regulation height or distance. So a professional would underestimate what they would need to get it in the basket right.
11 feet off the ground, which is subtle, but if you have a deadly three-pointer locked into your muscle memory, you will tend to miss short, which is exactly what we saw a bunch. The reason they have the big slope tarp in front is so that someone can't stand directly underneath the rim, where the height difference would be much more apparent. And here again, even if you go Steph Curry and drain your first $3 shot, you still lose because they only paid 80 cents for that basketball. Here's another example of getting you to overestimate your chances of winning by making subtle changes, because the table is slanted up slightly, which will reduce the horizontal velocity of the ball after the bounce. So even if you dominated this game all through college, your previous experience almost becomes a handicap. This measure your pitch speed game is borderline fraudulent, as their radar gun registers about 15 miles an hour too slow. And I know this because I measured the distance and then recorded it in high speed and counted the frames. This pitch was clocked at 69 miles per hour, but it's much closer to 84. For the milk bottle game, the only catch here is the bottles are metal and therefore heavier and more stable and harder to knock down than a typical bottle of that size. I've seen some carnivals though where these are bottom weighted, which would make them more steady and thus less likely to tip. To figure out which kind you have, you can ask to hold it, and the point at which it balances on your finger is the center of mass. The key to winning this game is hitting them right here with a hard enough throw to introduce sufficient kinetic energy. But don't throw it too hard, because we noticed those who threw their hardest usually sacrificed on accuracy. About 1 in 14 people knock this over on their first try. And then finally we have the basket toss game, and the key here is to have your first bounce hit on this front lip to reduce the kinetic energy enough that it won't bounce back out. About 1 in 10 throws will win on this game, according to our observations. And now this brings us to the final category of the near impossible games, and there are 3 of them. On this first one, the goal is to shoot out this red star completely with this automatic BB gun. So the best strategy is to basically shoot a circle around the star to cut it out. Not only are the guns not accurate or precise, but the bigger issue is that you start out doing really well because there's enough surrounding paper for the BB to easily rip through like this. But Newton's third law tells us that you can only push on something as hard as it can resist your push. So at the end, you have these barely supported pieces of the star that just move out of the way when the BB comes without building up enough stress to rip the paper. Out of 120 plays, we saw nobody win this game all day. This ring bottle game is also impossibly difficult. Again, it's a lightweight object that's really bouncy to encourage randomness, but the actual inner diameter of the ring is really close to the outer diameter of the bottle. This means that any throw besides this pretty much perfect one will send the ring bouncing away without settling in on the bottle. If you
Well, it is a scam.
really want this bear, I suggest going on Amazon and getting it for $47. I literally can't tell you how much money this will save you, because of the 840 rings we saw thrown, none stayed on a bottle. Which brings up sort of an obvious rule of thumb. If you want the feeling of winning a game, do not stop at any booth that offers really big prizes. And for the final near impossible game, let me
Yeah,
that as a
if you
carnivore,
want just the
we all know
prize,
games
just get it off Amazon.
customers overestimate their chances of success. No game is a better example of that than the ladder climb. There's a subtle issue with this game that I think people realize but don't internalize the significance. The ladder converges to be supported on the wall at 1 point instead of 2. If it was attached at 2 points, it's like crawling across a rope bridge, which is pretty easy. Let's pretend this is you, and if you shrunk all the weight of your body down to the average location, we call that spot the center of mass, which we'll mark with this dot. And once again, we can double check this is the right spot because it balances perfectly on one finger. If you draw imaginary lines connecting the different support points, that creates an area, and as long as your center of mass dot is within that area, it's impossible to fall off. But as soon as your center of mass dot is even a little bit outside of the area of supports, you start to rotate.
I like the production quality of this video.
The way you orient it. If you've ever bent over to pick something up, you actually know this fact, whether you realize it or not. In this case, the region of support is between the back of your heels and the tips of your toes. When you reach over, you will naturally move your butt back to keep your center of mass in between those support points. And if you don't believe me, try picking something up while standing against the wall so you can't move your butt back. At the very moment your center of mass gets beyond your toes, you start to tip over. In the case of the ladder game, you're only connected at 1 point, so even though it looks wide because the ladder rungs, that area of support reduces down to a line. So if you don't keep your center of mass directly above that line, you will start to rotate and fall off. In other words, to win this game, you basically need to be able to crawl across a tightrope. And you might think, well, I can do a slack line, so I can do this. But a slack line is actually much easier for 2 reasons. You can flail your arms and legs out to adjust your center of mass to keep it directly above that line of support. And your center of mass is higher, increasing your mass moment of inertia, making you more stable. In the same way, it's easier to balance this umbrella when it's extended versus when it's collapsed. So while there are a few videos that say tricks like maintain 3 points of contact, they're all basically useless because keeping your center of mass directly above a line is just something you have to get a feel for that takes a lot of practice. But once you've had enough practice, this is the one game at the carnival that's basically all skill, so you can win every time and clean them out. Unfortunately, the carnival owners know this, which is why it's also the only game with this super lame caveat. So now that we were carnival experts, I called up my buddy Matt Winokur, who was recently just drafted to play baseball for the New York.
Did you see that?
Carnival owners know this, which is why it's also
One win per player per month. The only game you can win every time with practice.
the only game with this super lame caveat. So now that we were carnival experts, I called up my buddy Matt Winokur, who was recently just drafted to play baseball for the New York Mets, to maximize our chances of winning any skill game that had to do with throwing. So clearly Matt had a deadly lock on any throwing game, but basketball is more my game. So to finish off the day, I decided I would bring his ego back into check. But as it turns out, if you are a world-class athlete in one sport, you are a really, really good athlete in all sports. So in conclusion, you should play the games if you think they're fun. Just know the odds are heavily stacked against you, so if you lose, it's NBD. Unlike this guy who lost his entire life savings playing carnival games. And if your motivation is to gain the love and admiration of someone special,
What?
animal like this, you don't need carnival games to do that. Amazon works totally just as well. I just bought this for you, my lady.
Let's What else is fun to watch? So on my YouTube account, It'll usually be a mixture of tubers and tech stuff. Well.
Pogi's got some more face tumors. We're waiting on biopsy results next week.
I think I'll be okay.
Ugh, Pogi, why are you such a tumor boy?
Ta-da!
Internet, have you ever
So this is another channel I watch fairly often.
but you live in Japan and they cost $500 and you're like, that's a lot of money to spend on something I don't know our cats will use. Well, you're in luck because today we bought the $500 cat wheel. This doesn't help you at all because even if our cats like it, that doesn't mean your cats will like it. So, the end. Is this $500 worth of smooth? Maybe. I don't know.
We'll see.
It's rolling away.
Try to get the cat to use the wheel.
I don't think this is helping.
No?
He doesn't want to.
Someone's high. Haku, watch Poki and learn.
They have such cute cats.
Your paw, you're gonna get a rug burn.
Wait. Keep walking.
Oh, he's getting.
Oh. Nagi いいね. Nagi いい感じ. Take a break? Take a break? Okay. Take a break. Okay.
So that Rachel and John's channel. I keep looking for something that isn't going to be full of profanity. Funny enough, it seems like Girl DM mostly uploads videos of her playing the less family-friendly stuff. Whoa, well, I can't even show you my recommends cause YouTube thinks I want nothing but videos about tubers. And of course, half these are just thumbnails of boobs, it seems. Okay, let's try my other YouTube. Oh, okay. So a while back I made a joke about, seems like I watch a lot of lawyers.
Thanks to CuriosityStream for keeping Legal Eagle in the air. Get 26% off CuriosityStream and Nebula using the link in the
So this
description.
is one of the lawyers I watch.
Knows police can't lie to you. False. If you ask a lawyer a legal question, the answer is usually
Also, he's a well-dressed man.
because it usually depends. The law is a vast and complex thing, so it won't surprise any of you that there are many misconceptions about what is and is not illegal. The law is complicated, and it's easy to get confused if you have no legal experience. But the fun thing about law is that people tend to believe that there are certain hard and fast rules that are, unfortunately, definitely wrong. So let's dispel some myths.
And I'm not going to watch the entire video, since I've seen this one.
Hello again, it's Locknoob, and it's very possible that you've been bought a lockpick.
Here's another lawyer I like to watch. Whoops, that's the wrong one.
This is the Lockpicking Lawyer, and what I have for you today is the door to a
There we
global brand hotel safe. I took the door off to make shooting this video a little bit easier. Now, like most hotel safes, you need to enter your preferred code each time you lock the door.
So lock-picking lawyer is very good at lock-picking. Most of his videos are like under 4 minutes. And that is with no editing.
There's an update in the class action complaint against YouTube over Content ID. It has survived
Then there is
dismissal.
Leonard
I
Friend.
think this is the first complaint against YouTube, let alone a class action complaint, to survive dismissal.
His stuff is pretty good. But unless you're interested in the fine details of lawsuits, it might not be everyone's cup of tea. But he basically talks about copyright stuff. So if you want to know about lawsuits that involve YouTube, he's your guy. Wow, YouTube is making it so darn hard to find you. Oh, I know who I can show.
The theater, the theater. What's happened to the theater? It hasn't gone anywhere and it probably never will. The apocalypse could happen, and all that would be left is a bunch of cockroaches and a 10-person acting troupe performing cats to said cockroaches. You remember me talking about this lady?
So
This
Rebecca
evil
Parham
evil
is very
witch who
entertaining.
fought her way up from hell? Well, guess what? I ain't done exploiting the memory of her yet. This is what you get for traumatizing me in my vulnerable formative years, Snakeface. Whether I like to admit it or not, I did learn some things about theater from Medusa.
So like Wolf with you, she's a storytime animator and one of I think 3 I found around the same time. There are 2 more storytime animators that became tubers I can't share. Though I can probably show you one more that you might know.
Hello YouTube, I'm here to make a quick announcement. As you could probably tell from this video, or if you follow me on Twitter, you might know that I started VTubing.
So I've known about Emmy Richulang before Twitch. More specifically, I knew about her probably from one specific video. She might have removed it, I wonder. I can't find it, but someone did a video of the store. We're not going to watch it. So a long time ago. There was a comedian I was watching on YouTube.
Oh my god, hi! Sorry I'm late. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. It's our birthday and we'll black out if we want to. No.
So Anna Ikana I was watching a long time ago. And then she, disappeared for a few years. So her stuff didn't get recommended to me again until, last week. Anyway, a lot of her older videos were basically her wearing different costumes and using editing tricks to have conversations with essentially herself. I wish I could remember one that is clean to show on YouTube, though. Let alone Twitch. I think on my original channel I mostly followed storytime and comedy channels. And 5 lawyers.
Hey, this is kind of like a part 2 video. I mean, you don't have to have seen the part 1 video to understand what I talk about in this video, but I mean, if you haven't watched part 1, you should. So I used to work at Subway, and to be honest, about 80% of the customers were fine. Sometimes they would do something that would just personally annoy me.
Here's one that hopefully this is clean.
So don't feel too bad for me. Like sometimes people would ask me, can I have a turkey with lettuce, tomatoes? Whoa, 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 slow down. What kind of bread? Footlong or 6-inch? What kind of cheese? Is it toasted? Then we'll talk about vegetables. And every time someone brought in a list, there would always be something missing on it. Always. I never had someone come in with a complete list. I would ask someone, what kind of cheese? And they would say, they didn't specify.
This video has 103 million views.
They'll get Swiss. If anyone watching is currently working at a Subway, then feel free to use these tricks. If someone asked me,
what kind of cheese do you recommend?
I would always say provolone, because it's the easiest cheese to pull apart with gloves on. Really, if anyone asked me what I recommended, I would just tell them the easiest thing for me to do. But even after I gave my insightful provolone cheese recommendation, sometimes people would still say,
I'll take American.
Why do you even ask me what cheese I would recommend if you're not going to take it seriously? Another thing that would annoy me is when people would say the sandwich was all done, but they didn't put any sauce on it. So I would ask, any sauce? And then they would be like, oh yeah, mayonnaise. Oh.
Incidentally. That's totally me. No sauce. I've never had any Subway person ever put a sauce on by accident either. I've had them try to kill me by giving me the wrong cookies that I'm allergic to.
Oh, why did you tell me it was all done if it wasn't? Also, the receipt machine at the store took like 7 seconds to print out the receipt. So it would be very awkward every time I would ask people, do you want your receipt? And then they would say yes, and then we would just stare at each other until the receipt printed. So what I did every time someone swiped their credit card, I would just stare off into space, and in my head I would count to 5. And then I would ask, do you want your receipt? And by the time they said yes, it was like magic. As soon as they said yes, the receipt printed. At Subway, you only work with one other person. So if someone got annoyed and said, let me talk to your manager, I would just look at them and go, listen, I've been here the longest. The only other person in this store is a 16-year-old girl, and she technically isn't old enough to use a toaster, so I'm probably your best bet. I'm the manager. Like, do people think the manager will automatically take their side and give them free stuff?
Yes, because people are entitled. And that is not unique to any store. I could probably go on an entire 2-hour video of customers trying to use a manager to get free stuff. Back when I worked at my first job that I actually got a paycheck from. Which is not the same as the first job I got paid. The store was basically run by hopeless people. So I was working in the department that had the seasonal stuff in it. Also the toys. You want to talk about entitled? People who collect die-cast toys. People who collect Matchbox or Hot Wheels. Never Barbie, funny enough. However, don't get me started on anything anime related. Because those people are delusional, I guess is the word. do you have? The popular hot item. You know, the one from that Tenshi. No, the other one. Can you check in the back? Let me speak to your manager. Sorry, my manager only orders the stuff. We saw you coming and decided to throw we had in the garbage compactor, yeah. Like, please, use some common sense. If it's not on the floor, it does not exist anywhere else in the store except maybe the customer returns. And if it's there, it will be back on the shelf by the end of the day. How to destroy someone's faith in humanity. Work at a retail store.
Yes, actually, I do think that because it happens all the time. I would consider myself a pretty laid-back Subway employee. I didn't like to be stingy with people, even though I was disobeying the Subway formula on purpose. Oh, you want more than 6 olives on your footlong? Pfft, sure. Here, have a 5th slice of cheese. $1.50 for avocado? Pfft, I'll charge you 75 cents, buddy. I probably shouldn't be saying these things, you know, in case this whole YouTube thing flops and I need a job. So I wasn't really strict on the rules. You know those fast food workers who are strict? No, we won't serve breakfast at 10:02. Get out. But being pretty laid back still didn't stop people from being annoying. So this one person comes in and asks for 2 footlong pastrami sandwiches. And pastrami is our most expensive sandwich. It's about $10 for a footlong. And guys, the pastrami is super good. But I wouldn't pay for it. I mean, it's good, yeah, but I'm not paying $10 for a footlong. It's not worth it. So this guy, I make his 2 sandwiches, I ring him up and I say, that'll be $20. And I guess he didn't look at the price of the sandwich on the menu, or he thought we still did the $5 footlongs, because he said to me, I ain't paying for that. And this is when I was just starting out. I only had like a week of experience. And after he said that, I responded, well, shoot. I guess you're not paying for it. I didn't know people could do that. Hey, I want this. All right, that's $20. Nah, you don't want it? No, I want it. I'm just not paying for it. Okay, no, but actually, we did come up with a compromise. He told me that he had $12, so he ended up paying for one of the sandwiches, and I got to eat the other one. So it all worked out. This one time I was making a sandwich for a guy with a very heavy accent, and he asks for onions on the side. No big deal. We at Suabwe put vegetables in little cups all the time. I actually got a soup cup because the on the side cups are teeny tiny, and I start doing my thing, but then he says, no, on the side. And I think, oh, he's getting a foot long. He probably wants onions on half of it, but not the other. So I start putting onions on half the sub, but then again, he says, no, on the side. At this point, I don't know what this guy wants. So I ask him, on the side of what?
Oh yeah, that's something else you'll encounter in retail. I want this thing. I see this thing, it's over there. So you get the fin? No, not that one. Good grief, the diecast people would have me go through 100 boxes of cards before they would realize we don't have the rare thing. It didn't help that the guy who worked in the department was also one of these collectible car people. So I don't know if he was moving them on purpose, or maybe I just was oblivious to it. I didn't care about the toy cars. But around the holiday season, people would just make massive messes of them. The amount of things stored in this store that would certainly fall in earthquake was pretty massive. So I didn't want to go up and look at the overstock. Because it would certainly flaunt a customer if I did.
And then he screams, "Onions!" And I never figured out what he was trying to say. This one old gentleman asks for sauce to be put on his vegetables, and normally we put it on top of the sandwich with the meat. And I didn't know if I heard him correctly because I put the sauce on and then I closed the sandwich. So your sauce would have been in the same place either way. One time, this woman tipped me and Corey $40. She wasn't annoying, I just want to sprinkle in some good customer stories. Okay, one time this Native American person came in, and I don't know if mentioning that was important to the story. He comes in and asks for 5-foot-long tunas. Okay, Tyler, just me and you, let's do this. And then when we're all finished, we ring him up and we say, "Anything else?" And he says, 7 meatballs. What? He wanted 7 more sandwiches. But James, you're Suabway. You're supposed to make people sandwiches regardless of how many they ask for. Yeah, I know, but the guy could have handled it differently. Normally for a platter, you have to call in at least an hour ahead, and that's only 5-foot-longs. This guy could have called ahead and said, "Hey, I'm getting 12 sandwiches, so just prepare yourselves." Mentally. I mean, we had so many customers waiting in line. No, we didn't. That's a lie. It was only him. But still.
Well, at least there wasn't a line. So when I went to the thing with my mom and sister at the beginning of the month, We stopped at the same subway, both on the way there and the way back. On the way there was a massive line, and like 3 people working behind the counter. The subway also didn't take tap to pay or the subway. So anyways, after my sister and mother waited in the car for what had to be a good 30 minutes, I finally got my sandwich. Then on the way back, same story, now only there is some celebrity right behind me. I have no idea who he is. But some fangirls came up to him and wanted photos. And again, this line is already all the way to the back of the store. So I'm just like, I'm undoubtedly in the background of this lady's photo.
Still, this one woman, I was making her sandwich, and for vegetables, she asked for extra lettuce. So I put on a big handful, but then she asks for more. So I put more on, and sprinkle some on, more! I won't be able to close the sandwich with any more lettuce. And she says, that's fine. All right, extra lettuce it is. So I ended up giving her an open sandwich with a mountain of lettuce. You know we do salads, right? When I was little, I always thought if I was working at a store and someone tried to rob me, I wouldn't give them any money. But now it's like, psh, I ain't risking my life for Subway. Here, take the cash register. So thankfully I've never had anyone pull a gun on me, but I have caught people stealing from us. I was making someone's sandwich and this one kid asks for just a water cup, so I gave it to him. So I go back to making a sandwich and I just hear the fuzzy soda sounds being dispensed. And I look over and the kid is putting soda in the cup. He didn't even try to hide it. When I put soda in a water cup, I at least wait for the employees to go in the back, but I didn't even say anything. I was just like, all right, man. This guy, I totally saw him take a bag of chips and he hid it under the counter so I couldn't see. So when I rang up his sandwich, I asked, anything else? And he said, nope. All right, whatever. Okay.
So last week, I was at the subway. And this one guy came into the store. Goes straight to the drink fridge. Pulls something out. Then goes to the back of the line right behind me. Waits like 30 seconds. realizes the person in front of me is taking forever. Goes back and puts the drink in the fridge and leaves the store. Like I'm not blind. When I'm in a store, I'm observing everything. That includes the order of the customer in front of me and whoever is standing in front and in mine. Because I want to make sure that the order in front of mine is not cross-contaminated with mine. Oh, look at the time.
Okay, last story. I was in the back and I was playing some Clash of Clans, and we have a computer that shows what the cameras see, and I see this woman who was eating there. She reached over the counter and took 3 large cups, and I did nothing to stop it. You know, I'm the kind of person that's like, the fast food employee is always right. Say if I was eating somewhere and I asked for a chicken salad and they said, we only have tuna salad. I'm the kind of person that's like, oh, well, I guess I'm having the tuna salad then. I think people need to realize that these fast food workers are actually people and not something for you to use to get a free sandwich.
Well, thank you for joining me today. So we played Tower of Fantasy. We ordered dinner from McDonald's. We watched some videos. We played Family Feud. And then we finished the main story of Tower of Fantasy. And then we watched some videos of who I watch on YouTube. So thank you again. Have a good morning.